We interrupt your program to issue a severe warning for an impending emergency making its way to your area. We urge you to be watchmen of the times and to be prepared with the essential knowledge and supplies for the wake of the final hour.
Welcome to the final hour, coming to you from the original Living Word Christian Center out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Jim Hammond. This is John Gapp.
Howdy.
This is Lonaiah Farrell and our producer, Derek Schrader. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah. We have a lot to go over. And in the first podcast, we talked about a lot about the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
And we will refer to that a few times today because some things have popped up about them since we talked about them. But if you want more information on them, you can just go back to the previous podcast and check that out. That would be podcast number 1. Okay, number 1.
That's right. It's nice to have it rolling here with the Final Hour podcast. It's
we are rolling.
It's pretty cool.
We are rolling. And listen, on the World Economic Forum, it had a video of 8 goals by 2030, and you can Google that, World Economic Forum. And one of their goals, and this is very powerful people, Bill Gates, Prince Charles. We just found out who was the new member we found out?
Oh, the Chrystia Freeland lady?
Yeah.
Who is Justin Trudeau's deputy prime minister, and she's the Minister of Finances in Canada.
And doesn't she have a high position in the World Economic Forum?
Yeah, she is the treasurer, and she worked under George Soros for 25 years.
All right,
okay, so she is a George Soros trained person and connected person. She's in the World Economic Forum.
Yes.
And she's the Canadian deputy prime minister.
And the Minister of Finances in Canada. Both those roles in Canada.
Wow.
And she's the treasurer of the World Economic Forum, you said?
Yes.
What? And that's...
So she kind of outranks Justin Trudeau.
My goodness.
Yeah,
in a sense.
She does.
And we just feel like a lot, hopefully we can get to that. A lot that's going on up there we believe has a lot to do with the World Economic Forum.
Right.
But we just want to kind of back up, because is literally after we talk about these things pop up. We said one of the World Economic Forum's major goals on this by 2030 was to get the world eating much less meat. And they actually say on the video, you will only get meat as an occasional treat. It's for the good of the environment
It's not gonna fly
and your own health,
No.
right? Wow. And that goes back to something we talked about, bovine flatulence, and that's just an excuse. But, is the reason they're saying would they want us to eat much less meat? It's control. It's to weaken the population, I believe. We even gave a Bible verse of the Bible prophesying this. But what a coincidence. Newsflash. Like 1 week later, we had the New York mayor, Eric Adams.
Yes.
Do we have his quote by any chance?
He just said that he is a vegetarian, and his goal is to make all of New York vegetarians as well, to go towards a plant-based diet because it's better for everybody.
Better for everyone.
Hmm.
And, on top of that,
Not for me.
right out of our last podcast, we hear about author Carol Adams spoke at Oxford University to promote her vegan lifestyle and how anyone that continues to eat meat is a racist and a sexist. Yes, we are going there. We are going there, America. They are going to brand you eventually. Within time, they're going to call you sexist and racist if you're eating meat. This is how, isn't this what they're calling the truckers up there on the border too?
Racist.
Yes.
Race. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm getting ahead of myself, but isn't that some wild stuff on the meat?
That's absolutely crazy. We'll put the link to that.
Both of those.
That author Carol Adams.
Yes.
And what she was saying in Oxford, and it is just insane to connect the dots in her mind or what she's pushing between meat and masculinity and racism. Like It's such an insane thing. But the problem is, once you get a foothold with a statement like that, it starts to give credibility to different academia people. And so that's how they start pushing a narrative that has no foundation in truth. Right. It's an opinion. It's not good science. It's just crazy, but it's a foothold. It's a foot in the door to start a conversation about racism and sexism and how much someone eats meat. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And if you hear her video, and I heard the video, she says some outrageous things. Outrageous things.
Just crazy.
So that, and you can look that up. I mean, they could probably Google her speaking, Carol Adams, author Carol Adams speaking at Oxford University. I mean, it's on social media. Is that where we pulled it off? And it's just interesting. We were talking about the World Economic Forum saying, they're going to reduce the amount of meat people eat, and it's only going to be used for a treat. And then all of a sudden, we've got the mayor of New York, and and this obviously this author,
newly elected mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Newly elected mayor, right?
Yep.
And he's a vegan. We're happy for him. I will steal hot dogs if they make meat illegal. I will steal them.
Well, in Florida,
okay,
steak is it's like chained down. You can't get it without security come in unlock the steak pack for you, so you can take
in certain stores.
Yeah, in Florida, yeah.
What
like
kind of stores?
Publix,
I'm sure
probably.
I'm sure that's not in Cub.
It's not happening in It's not happening in Minnesota right now.
Okay.
There would be a righteous revolt.
Well, as long as they're not locking down the hot dogs, because I'll figure out a way to walk out of there with those. Okay.
We get some venison hot dogs out here in Minnesota. We're probably gonna keep in the meat supply with enough deer around here.
I'll stay with the pork.
Okay.
I'll stay with the pork hot dogs all day.
Yeah.
And so chili dogs with onions, Portillo's, I might be going. Anyways, just for the just some new information here. Let me put on my taped together reading glasses too. I realize that this is the taped together pair. And I did talk about this in church last week, but you are now, you can find this information on it is the Department of Homeland Security website.
Yeah.
Okay. You are now officially a terrorist threat if you share misleading narratives which sow discord or undermine public trust in U.S. government institutions. And the way it reads on the website is the proliferation of false or misleading narratives which sow discord or undermine public trust in the U.S. government institutions. They can brand you a terrorist, but it's what they deem it's what they deem a misleading narrative, right? And the White House press secretary Jen Psaki's statement on Tuesday, directing big tech and Spotify to do more to eradicate alleged COVID misinformation on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast suggests that the future of the First Amendment is bleak. A representative of a ruling party dictating to a private company what content is accurate and what is not is a clear sign that the U.S. government has embraced censorship. What do you guys think about that one? That is mind-blowing.
It makes me furious, especially since, fake news has been the one of those buzzwords over the last few years. But what has come out about Facebook and Twitter, truth, what do they call them? The people that the fact checkers, that it's now known that they weren't necessarily basing their fact checking on
it was up to the person's
truth.
Discretion.
It was just to their discretion.
Yes.
Whether they could back it up or not, they just said, "I don't like that," or they could do whatever they want because they were a fact checker. How much is what the government going to do going to end up being it's not a true, or it's not a fact, or it's not factual because I don't like what you're saying. I don't agree with what you're saying, whether it's true or not.
Well, which is interesting because the Joe Rogan podcast that actually started all this is
Right.
from the doctor who invented the COVID vaccine.
Right.
So we're calling him
He invented a
misinformation.
portion of it, correct?
He was part
invented
of.
the mRNA portion of
Right.
it.
Okay.
Right.
But I do love that the CEO of Spotify, I guess I found out that they're based in Sweden, was basically like,
Right.
we like all conversations at the
Yeah.
table.
Yep.
And if we start to go one-sided, that's not good for anybody.
No.
So we're just going to put on a so now they have like censor labels or warnings like, hey, there might be misinformation in this podcast.
Sure.
And misinformation is, yes, whatever the
Right.
White House deems
Right.
misinformation.
But this
Right.
law is trying to silence
yeah,
Sure,
calls terrorist
sure.
some
threats, anyone?
conversations.
Yes.
Not all, like Spotify saying we like both sides of the conversation.
Right.
Right.
This law is saying nope. You only if we deem it inappropriate, there's only one side of the conversation that's allowed to be talked about. Correct?
Right, and we're considered it's considered a terrorist threat if you go against.
Which is, I mean, that opens the conversation as to why the Second Amendment is so important to be able to back up the First Amendment.
right.
I mean, I don't want to do any crazy theories. I'm just saying that's why we have all of these rights. Why not the Declaration and but the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. All of those articles are there to protect each other. But I guess the question is how slow of a rollout of these different infringements on the rights of the citizens of the United States of America. How long will people go along with it and just say it's just a little bit, it's just a little bit, it's just a little bit?
I don't know.
When does that?
I was nervous on Sunday.
Right.
I was nervous on Sunday because I was given
Right.
some of these facts, and I had visions sitting in the front row and them taking me and James Tan out in handcuffs. But I think it's going to be, you're going to see it go in like they snuck it in, and it's real quiet,
Yep.
and they're going to wait a while.
Right.
Right. And I don't think they're going to hit someone big first. I don't think it's going to be big. It's going to be someone smaller. It's going to be mid-level people making an impact, things that they don't like them to say, correct? And then it's going to work it up from there. We'll just see how that plays out. Do you have any comments, any further comments on that, Lonaiah?
I mean, to that point, it kind of, if you guys have heard of Pastor Arthur, who is in Canada, he has been coming to the United States for the last 2 years because they don't allow church to happen in Canada, and he wants it to happen.
So
and they've arrested him and his brother multiple times. Currently, like, he got arrested 2 weeks ago for just asking to have church for Easter.
Right.
And kind of like saying, this is what we want. The people want this. We want to do this. Well, they ended up arresting him, and he was locked in solitary confinement until yesterday when he had his first court case.
And by the way, there's video of him being dragged down the street by his head by the cops, correct?
Yes.
They haven't had church up there in Canada in 2 years.
Since mid 2020, since mid March 2020.
Yeah.
So for 2 years, people can't congregate at church
Right.
in Canada.
Correct.
Wow. And hopefully we're going to get to Canada, which is at the end here. But, I just, I gotta hit you with this quote here. It started with a California law that was passed in 2018, where, and actually I gave this information, this was wrong information. I said they were trying to pass this when I brought this up in one of the services in church this weekend. But no, this was passed in 2018 in California, that if your child wants a sex change, they do not need parental consent for as age as low as 13. Is
12.
it 12? So a 12-year-old child in California, this is a law. If they decide that they want a sex change and that they're a boy and they want to be a girl, they can go get that without getting permission from the parents. And this is the state of our country. But then, what's interesting about that is there was a quote, and it was all over, literally. I'm going to be able to play this video in church. Melissa Harris Perry on NBC, of course, MSNBC.
Yep.
This is her exact wording. We haven't had a very collective notion of these our children, right? What she's saying is people don't understand that these are not your children. So part of it is we have to break through our private idea that kids belong to their parents. She's calling that a private idea.
Right.
Or kids belong to their families, and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Isn't that just touching? No, actually it's scary.
Frightening.
And she says once it's everyone's responsibility, not just the households, then we start making better investments. So this is where the world is going. Your 12-year-old child in California can now decide they want a sex change. And by the way, many teachers are trying to convince, it seems like girls to be boys.
Right.
And it's a very common thing. There's lawsuits on this stuff. And then you've got this MSNBC reporter, this one pretty viral, did it not?
It went very viral.
Yes. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, it's infuriating that someone would claim the child and the right and the power to make decisions for my children. It's very, very near and dear to my heart, but I would say that idea about the nucleus of the family in America has been under attack for quite a while.
Right.
That has been a target in, some would say academia, but just in life in America, the nucleus family, the center of a family with mom and dad and children, a household where they can raise their children, make the decision about their children's parentage and what opportunities they have, and to have a say in what's going on in their life until the child is 18, to be able to train a child and form them and to help them understand what's going on in the world around them. It's crazy to think that a politician would have that say or try to go into that conversation.
Or what we're seeing is a teacher.
Right. Teachers.
Oh yeah.
What are the lawsuits out there?
So there's two big lawsuits right now, one in California and one in Florida. And basically, I know that in California, I don't know what the law is specifically in Florida, but a teacher has the right to counsel a student if they come to them with a question regarding gender specific. But what the teachers do to get that conversation going is they create a project that has a question in them that maybe the child doesn't understand, and then that opens the door for them to go to the child and ask. So this one mom who's in California who's suing the school,
they go to the child and ask what?
Like the child will come to them and say, like, I don't understand this. Can you explain this? And then that opens a conversation like, hey, are you questioning your gender? So you're a girl, but you want to be a boy? And they kind of like go down this path with the kid where they're teaching them. Teachers are really getting away from math, science, and history, right? They're now going into like politics and social,
psychology, which is not what they're trained for.
No, absolutely.
They're not trained to convince a girl that she should be a boy, and that's the bottom line of what's going on in these lawsuits, right, Lonaiah?
Well, I'm done. Like, your job is to teach my child math, not to talk to my child about the values that I'm supposed to instill in them, not you. Because
the lady's daughter came home these are real lawsuits. Okay, her daughter came home suicidal.
Yes, suicidal, and she's like, "What's going on?" And then it came out that the teacher was trying to convince this girl who's 13 that she's a boy, and the mom was like, I'm going to sue the school. So she actually went to the school, and she has, there's actually two teachers that were meeting with the girl trying to convince her of this. So the girl was like crying because she's like, I'm getting bombarded by my teachers. What can I do?
Right. And that's California AB 1184 is that bill that is the subject of all that.
Yeah. And I will have to say, I think all of this, it kind of opened parents' eyes. That's why you see a bunch of parents going to the school board meetings. And actually in San Francisco, the parents, they won against the school board, and they actually had to let 3 of their school board members go because they're like, you're trying to indoctrinate them with
Right.
all these other things. You're not looking at the education of the child. You're looking at your the way you want to go socially.
Right.
So they actually let 3 San Francisco board members
Glad
go.
to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, something I just found out is Minnesota is a state where a child does not need parental consent. One of 9 states, Lonaiah,
Yes.
that a child doesn't need parental consent for a vaccination.
Yeah.
Correct?
So it's like the HPV and the hepatitis B. And I dealt with that situation a couple of years ago
Now,
with my daughter.
can I be clear? I don't think that that doesn't have to do with COVID vaccination right
No,
now,
the
correct?
only California is the one state that's trying to push for their kids to be able to get the COVID vaccine at the age of 12 without a parental consent.
Okay.
Otherwise, every state requires the parent to say, yes, I want my child to have this, or
Right.
no, I don't. But they're trying to change it because in 9 other states, Minnesota being one of them, you don't have to be in the room 12 and up to say consent to your child getting certain vaccines.
Didn't a doctor try to get you to leave the room?
Yeah, they
When
got
your
me to
doctor-
leave the room because she said it's against the law. And had I known this at the time, I was just very ignorant on
Why was
the
she
law.
trying to get you to leave the room?
Because my daughter was 13, so she could make the decision for herself. Because I'm like, we don't want the vaccine. She has vaccine hesitancy. Like, she's
Right.
had issues. We just don't do vaccines. And she's like, can you leave the room? So I left, and then my daughter came back.
Did you say, sure, I'll leave the room?
No, I was like, I don't need to leave the room. She's like, it's law that you have to leave the room. So I was like, okay, like, I'm not going to.
Wow.
So I go out
Wow.
and I come back, and my daughter's like, yeah. She asked me, like, do you want to get the vaccine, or does your mom not want you to get the vaccine? And she's like, no, I don't want the vaccine. She's, asked her like 10 times, are you sure? And then went on a rampage of, are you a girl or are you a boy? Or do you
So
want
she questioned about that too?
Oh, yeah, like, because she said you identify as a girl, but is that, like, let's just talk because your mom isn't here. Do you identify as anything else, or is that just because your mom wants you to
Wow.
identify?
This is your personal experience.
This is my personal
How old
experience.
was Leighton? Oh,
She
sorry.
was 13 at the time, and now she's 16, so that was 3 years ago. But at the time, I just thought, oh, that's really weird. But now looking at it all, I'm like,
Yep.
oh, my gosh.
Right.
This was three years ago.
Yeah. Oh,
I was mad.
So, just let me repeat that by the MSNBC reporter that went viral. These are our exact words. So, part of it is we have to break through our private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families. I think that's almost. I think that lines up with communism.
yeah.
The
Oh,
children
for
belong to the
sure.
state.
We'll own nothing and be happy.
Yeah, we'll own nothing and be happy. World
That's
Economic
not
Forum.
fun.
Yeah.
Number 1 on World Economic Forum's list, but you'll own nothing and be happy. I can't see that.
Me neither.
Just give me my hot dogs.
We'll make sure. Hot dogs are the only meat that has not gone up with inflation, so you can have all the hot dogs
There you go.
want.
Yeah, they are cheap.
Yeah, they are.
They are cheap.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I guess we're going to get into this knowing that this is ever changing, and it could be, with only a few minutes left here, it could be old news real quick.
Yeah.
You have this Trudeau, did he really call martial law in Canada?
Yes, it's actually called the Emergency Act.
Right.
And so it's instated for 30 days. So once that expires, the 30 days expires, he can, re-enable it again.
Right.
And he doesn't have to have permission from any of, because everyone's like, well, all the provinces are individual and led by individual people. But he just has to call them and say, hey, I just want you to know I'm invoking this act. He doesn't
Yeah.
have to have their agreement. They don't have to say, yes, he invoked it.
How is it martial law in your opinion?
Well, he's in control of everything. So he can seize their bank accounts. He can tell them if they can fly or not fly.
Right.
He can control he can control if their kids go to school or don't go to school. He's in charge of everything.
That's what martial law is? I mean, that's...
Yeah, that is, like, if you look up what he's doing and what this actually means.
So
to them.
what's this about freezing bank accounts?
So he's freezing people's bank accounts. So right now, because of the Freedom Convoy that's there,
Yes.
and they're calling anybody who donated or anybody who's a part of that a terrorist threat.
Right. Right.
So he's seizing that, like you. So if anybody here donated to the Freedom Convoy, the Washington Post actually got all the somebody hacked into the Freedom Convoy donation box or website and got all the names of the donors and put them on the Washington Post website. The Washington Post actually ran the story, and they started calling people saying, why were you donating to this?
It's because, let's just be clear about the freedom truckers, those guys up there on the border,
Yeah.
who they are calling, what do they call them, racist?
Yeah.
Okay.
And terrorist threats.
What is their main point? What are they doing it for up there?
Okay, so their main point is because they feel like the government has overreached in a lot of areas. They don't have church. They're not allowed to, I think they just went to school. They still have masks. They want them. So anyone 13 and above has to have a vaccine passport to get in and out of anything you do. And they're just saying, we don't oppose the vaccine. We just oppose all the mandates and all the regulations you're putting on our life.
Let's make that clear. They are not, and that's just like myself. I do not oppose the vaccine.
Right.
But I oppose the mandate.
Right.
Yes.
The mandate, telling someone they have to do something with their own body. Okay? And these truckers are opposing vaccine mandates.
Right.
They are not opposing the vaccine itself.
Actually, 90% of the truckers are vaccinated.
Yes.
Which, I mean, yeah. So they've had to be vaccinated to conduct business in Canada over the last 2 years.
Right.
So that, I mean, well, I guess the vaccine is only, a year old or whatever.
Yeah, like a year. But I was listening to a Canadian journalist yesterday.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about Justin Trudeau and the Emergency Act that he implemented. And he said the Emergency Act wasn't even put into place on 9/11. And it wasn't put into place when their parliament was attacked in 2014.
Right.
But we're implementing this act for peaceful people who are just parked on the street. He's like, terrorists, you think of like terrorists, like they're threatening us. He's like, the worst they're going to get is a parking ticket.
These are protesters. These are people simply protesting.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about the freezing the accounts, and I watch crypto and everything, but they're talking about not only are they freezing like crowdfunding, but they're trying to freeze any sort of crypto withdrawals.
Yeah.
To then continue, whatever protesting that they want to do. But I mean, isn't the financial minister, who is that?
The Chrystia Freeland. Yeah, she has power over all that.
I mean, so they had that announcement after Trudeau invoked the emergency powers.
But they're really saying that is why he invoked the emergency powers, because he could have access to their finances, because that's the only way he could get access to people's finances.
Seeing Canada do this,
right,
which is the equivalent of Joe Biden in Canada,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That's like Joe Biden freezing our bank accounts.
Right.
Basically, in essence, it's like his government. Can you guys see that happening here? I mean, thank God that's not here. I don't know what would happen in America if that happened. If they froze your accounts, wow. I mean, this is in Canada. They're freezing their bank accounts.
This is right there. I mean, I think a lot of the world, at least, thinks Canada is just like the nicer up north friendly neighbor of America. But right now, that's a drastic difference. But how can we make sure that doesn't happen here? Well, I think it's interesting. We keep that conversation going, right?
Right.
Yes, we keep it going. Well, there's more freedom convoys coming. There's going to be one in the U.S. We want to get more into this on the next. And we also want to get into how Justin Trudeau and all that he's doing up there and how that's connected to the World Economic Forum on the next podcast of the final hour. Thank you so much. Is Portillo's open yet? Because I'm gonna go get a chili dog with onions. Thank you so much for tuning in to the final hour.